بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا فما بعد. My dear brothers sisters, the topic of my khutbah today is gratitude is to acknowledge the truth. We seem to live today in a world where we are surrounded by bad news. That leads us to feeling stressed and depressed and threatened and hopeless about the future. Many people seem to feel that we are living at the end of times and in a world and society that is terrible to live in. If you feel this way, believe me, you are not alone. However, the problem with this feeling is that firstly, it is not true. Secondly, if you feel this way, it debilitates you and takes away your initiative and your energy and your will and desire to do anything. It drains your energy, it sabotages your ambition and increases your anxiety to potentially dangerous levels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to be grateful, and He warned those who are not to beware of His punishment. We know the ayat of Surah Ibrahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذْ تَعَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَئِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَئِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, your Rabb has announced, and this is being proclaimed, that the one who is grateful for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase those blessings for this person, and the one who is ungrateful, let them beware of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from His punishment. Gratitude is, on the other hand, energizing and joyful and encouraging and very powerful. Ingratitude is the opposite on all these counts. The question is, you might say, well, what should I be grateful for? So let me help you with some facts. When I was growing up, from the 1950s to the 1980s, we did not have a refrigerator or gas or electric stove. Food was cooked on firewood or coal in a smoky kitchen or outside. We routinely had no electricity for many hours a day. Sometimes we had electricity for only 2 or 3 hours a day. So 22 or 21 hours a day we had no electricity. So no lights, no fans. In the summer, temperatures 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 plus degrees Celsius. We had no central heating, no air conditioning, one car. Nobody had cars. Even one was a rarity. No television. What was on your lap was not a computer. Go wash your mind. Phones were not smart, people were. We wrote letters by hand, licked the stamp, stuck it on the envelope, and posted it, and counted the days until the postman brought us a reply. We had malaria and cholera and typhoid and polio and tuberculosis. Later we got chikungunya and dengue. We always had the flu, and when the doctors didn't know what we had, they called it viral fever. Today, malaria and polio, myelitis have been eradicated. The others are still there. I can add to this list. And there are many here who will bear witness with me and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can talk about those days and smile. Today, with air conditioning, antibiotics, painkillers, glasses, LASIK surgery for sight correction, cataract and bypass surgery, medical diagnostic equipment and advanced pathology, sneakers, thermal underwear and jackets, eating out, restaurants, non-seasonal fruits, treadmills, central heating, indoor flushing toilets, hot and cold water on tap, we ordinary people are better off and more comfortable than the wealthiest and most powerful kings and queens of the past. Add to this that today our children routinely go to school, are literate, and many go on to higher education. In medieval Europe, 99% of people could not write their names, and that included most kings and queens. We live in countries where the only thing limiting your material growth learning, and career advancement is yourself. Anyone willing to make the effort can get to the top. Just see who are the people heading major corporations whose turnover in some cases is more than the GDP of many countries. Not a single one is a hereditary monarch or noble. There was a time not too long ago where if you were not born into the right family, your fate was sealed. Today, your present situation does not decide if you will succeed or fail. It only defines where you need to start. If you have ambition and determination, if you seek feedback, if you are willing to learn, if you sleep less and work hard, nothing but death can stop you. Despite all this, we enjoyed life enormously and have wonderful memories, not because we had stuff, but because we had attitude, an attitude of gratitude. That was inculcated into us from the earliest, and that is what is most necessary in the way we raise children today. Teach them to value people and use stuff, not to value stuff and use people, not the other way around. Thankfulness is the open secret of happiness. So while we look at all that is wrong with society, let us reflect on what is right. Because the reality is that today there is far more that is right than what is wrong. Let's continue. Today our major preoccupation is COVID, right? Let us put that also into perspective. The Justinian plague, it was called that because the Byzantine emperor, the Roman emperor was Justinian. The Justinian plague, which started in 541 CE, 6th century, wiped out 40% of the Arab population of the world. While the exact origins of the plague remain unclear, it is estimated that up to 300,000 people died in Constantinople alone in the first year of the outbreak. That was 50% of the population of Constantinople at that time. 300,000 people. There were approximately 5,000 deaths in Constantinople every day at the height of the pandemic, even reaching highs of 10,000 on some days. They could not bury people, they could not bury them fast enough, they just left the bodies there in the street. The Justinian plague is estimated to have killed up to 50 million people, which was half the population of the world at the time, as it spread across Asia, North Africa, Arabia, and Europe. The plague had a mortality rate, now listen carefully, the Justinian plague had a mortality rate of between 68 and 78%. Death would come 2 to 5 days after infection. 78% fatality rate. This plague resurfaced regularly every 10 years. From 1348 to 1665, there were 40 outbreaks in just over 300 years. The plague does not exist today. Eradicated. Another major killer was smallpox, with a mortality rate of 30%. That means 1 in 3 people die. Those who survived lived with permanent scars on the face. DePaul professor Thomas Mockaitis, he writes, there hasn't been a kill-off in human history to match what happened in the Americas, in North and South America, where 90 to 95% of the indigenous population, Native Americans, were wiped out over a century. Why? Because of smallpox. Mexico went from 11 million people pre-conquest, the Spanish conquest, Spanish conquistadors, to 1 million. From 11 million to 1 million. 10 million out of 11 million people died. One of those people alleged, he's not the only one, but one of those alleged to have used smallpox as a germ or biological warfare weapon against the Native Americans right here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is Field Marshal Lord Jeffrey Amherst. The name strikes a bell, right? Lord Jeffrey Amherst, 1st Baron Amherst. after whom the town and the college are named, who allegedly ordered that blankets infected with a discharge of smallpox sores should be sold to Native Americans. Make money even there. This was done, and the result in a population which had no resistance to the disease was predictable. It wiped them out. Smallpox was eradicated in 1981. Now compare this fatality rate of the plague and smallpox to COVID-19, which never exceeded 1.5%, even at its peak. So what do you want to say about COVID now? The fact is that if we look at change over time, the world today is healthier, richer, and better educated than in the past. Now, this does not mean by any means that there are no problems. There are problems, many of them new ones. But to solve them, we must collaborate and work together across boundaries of culture and race and religion and nationality. We must collaborate and share our blessings for the greater good of everyone. We like to talk about the global village, but don't usually remember that one of the results of being a village is that what happens to one will affect another. We are in this together, in the same boat, to sink or swim as we wish. From an Islamic angle, we must do three things. Number one, change the way we connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, change the way we educate. And number three, change the way we relate with one another. Let's look at each of these very quickly. We must change the way we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As I mentioned last Friday, given ever more powerful technology, AI and so on, there is a tendency to get disconnected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to lose confidence in the sunnah of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We must reconnect with Allah through tahajjud and the Quran and by reflecting on His glory and majesty and His innumerable blessings on us. We must remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the technology. Technology is nothing new. Humans have had access to technology for millennia, and some of that of such high complexity that we don't even understand it yet. Yet, we see its amazing traces and effects which leave us astonished. I can give you a list of these things, but will mention just one which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. The man who brought the throne of the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of Saba, from its location in what is today's Rubb al-Khali in Yemen to Jerusalem in the blink of an eye. He effectively transported a massive physical object over 1,789 kilometers, that is 1,111 miles, without physical means. Sulaiman alayhi salam's reaction shows us how to keep connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despite whatever technology comes our way. Allah told us what Sulaiman alayhi salam said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك فلما رآه مستقرا عنده قال هذا من فضل ربي ليبلوني أأشكر أم أكفر ومن شكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن ربي غني كريم. Sulaiman alayhi salam said, which means in Surah Al-Naml, one with whom was knowledge of the scripture said, I will bring it to you within the twinkling of an eye. Then when Sulaiman alayhi salam saw it placed before him, he said, this is by the grace of my Rabb, to test me whether I am grateful or ungrateful. And whoever is grateful, truly his gratitude is for the good of his own self. And whoever is ungrateful, he is ungrateful only for the loss of his own self. Certainly my Rabb is rich, Ghani, free from all wants, Kareem and bountiful. My brothers and sisters, I remind myself and you that the Quran is for us to understand and implement and connect our lives, our daily lives, our challenges, what we do and say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The best example of the importance of having confidence in the Sunnah, we saw the importance of confidence in Allah in Islam. The best example of the importance of having confidence in the Sunnah is the behavior of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. When he went to Jerusalem to take the key to the city from the Patriarch Sophronius in 637-638 CE. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, as they were nearing, he had a deal with his servant that for a distance the servant would ride the camel and Sayyidina Umar would lead it, and then they would change, change their turns. And it so happened that as they were close to Jerusalem, the servant was sitting on the camel and Sayyidina Umar was leading. The servant said to him, Ya Abil Mu'mineen, we are going to enter the city, people are going to be expecting the Amir, so you sit on the camel, let me lead. He said, no. He said, what we agreed, we agreed. And he continued to lead the camel with the servant sitting on the top, mounted on it. And then he refused to wear rich, elaborate clothes, because this is how Sophronius was dressed and all the other bishops and so on. And when Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah radiallahu anhu, he tried to insist, because he was the commander of the army, when he tried to insist that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu should change his clothes, because he was wearing a thobe which was patched, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu said to him, the only thing that saves you from me is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved you. We just defeated these people. Do you want me to give up what gave us victory and take to the ways of the people we defeated? It is confidence that we lack today, and the results are clear. This is what we must get back. And the way to get that back, is by connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to live Islam. Number 2, change the way we educate. We have fractured education, and we teach the Quran as if there is no creation, and we teach about the creation as if there is no creator. I have spoken at great length about this in my lectures on integrated teaching and so on, and I will continue to do that in the coming weeks, especially as here in ISWM we are going to start the after school program, inshallah. But let us remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about education. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to us, Inna fi khalqi samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafi al-layli wal nahari la ayatin li ulil albab. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, which means verily in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and in the alternation of the night and the day, there are indeed signs for people of understanding. Who are those people? Those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing, sitting and lying down on their sides, and they think deeply about the creation of the heavens and the earth, saying, Our Rabb, you have not created all this without purpose. Glory to you, give us salvation from the torment of the fire. Integrated teaching, according to the sequence mentioned in the Quran al-Kareem, opens the heart to the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reminds us about our meeting with Him. It produces taqwa and tawakkul, which lead to contentment and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and the next. The third thing we need to change is the basis on which we relate to one another. It is high time and critical to connect with one another on the basis that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed for us, and to resolve any differences that we may have, and create and recreate the brotherhood of faith. That was my topic last Juma. Recreating the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed for us, and He said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and hold fast all of you together to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran, which is the deen of Islam. And do not be divided amongst yourselves. And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor on you, for you were enemies to one another, but He joined your hearts together, so that by His grace you became brethren, you became brothers to one another in Islam. and you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and He Jalla Jalaluhu saved you from it. Thus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes His ayat, His signs, His revelation clear to you that you may be guided. I remind myself anew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prohibit difference of opinion, but He prohibited divisions. He prohibited us from dividing into sects and groups, hating and condemning one another. This is tragically what we have done to ourselves today. We must learn to disagree without being disagreeable and learn to collaborate and work together. The truly great and complex problems that face us in the world today can only be solved by collaborating, not by people working and living in silos, each in his own highly individualistic world. Today we do almost nothing together as a family. Just ask yourself, even watching a TV program, do we all sit together and watch a TV program? Do we read a book and discuss it in the family? Do we listen to some radio something? What do we do together as a family today? Nothing. Our homes have become hotels. People check in, check out. They come, they eat at will, they sleep at will, they go out at will, they come back at will, and there is no connection between each other. Almost every young person I ask, where's your dad? I don't know. You ask the father, where's your son? I don't know. This is our life. My brothers and sisters, this must change. This must change. We must build bridges between family members, between community members, and between members of society, and learn to work together across boundaries of culture and belief and language and race and ethnicity. We must work together because in the end we are all creatures of one Creator to whom is our return. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His help and mercy to enable us to live in a way that benefits us and pleases Him. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.